Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something incredibly intimate, the hidden architecture of your own body. We usually think about our health as this collection of totally isolated habits, right? Like we fix our diet to lose weight, we jog for heart health, maybe we drink coffee to jumpstart our brain. But what if that entire approach just misses the bigger picture? What if your body isn't just a bunch of separate parts, but a deeply, deeply interconnected operating system? Well, today we are going to expose the invisible biological forces running right beneath your daily experience. We're going to see exactly how your airway, your metabolism, and your brain are literally biologically tethered together in ways that science is really just starting to unravel. I want you to keep this central question in the back of your mind as we go through this. What invisible biological forces are actually shaping the quality of your life, literally every single day? Because while you're lying perfectly still in the dark, completely unconscious, there is an absolute symphony of mechanical and chemical processes happening. They're keeping you alive, they're regulating how you age, and they're actively determining your cognitive future. And the scary part, for millions of people, this hidden operating system is silently crashing. Okay, let's kick this off with a quote that completely shatters how we usually view rest. Dr. Maiken Nedregard, she's a pioneering neuroscientist from the University of Rochester Medicine, put it perfectly. She says, "Sleep is not a quiet or inactive state. What is emerging now is the idea that sleep is also a highly organized fluid transport state that helps maintain brain health." We are so used to thinking of sleep as just an off switch, right? A time when the brain just shuts down to save power. But the reality is the exact opposite. Sleep is a highly active, absolutely mandatory physiological state. And to understand how this vital state gets disrupted, we actually have to start by looking at where your breath begins. Section 1. The invisible airway struggle. So our first hidden force takes us straight to the back of the throat. Welcome to a silent epidemic that completely bridges the gap between just harmless snoring and full-blown sleep apnea. It's called upper airway resistance syndrome, or UARS. I want you to imagine trying to breathe through a pinched straw. Your airway doesn't completely close off, so you're technically still getting air, but your respiratory system has to work significantly harder to pull that air into your lungs. Your brain senses this intense physical struggle and basically hits a biological panic button. It triggers this incredibly brief, microscopic awakening, just enough to restore muscle tone and get you breathing normally again. These are called arousals. The catch here, your oxygen levels never actually drop significantly, which means traditional sleep tests completely miss it. For decades, the medical stereotype of a sleep apnea patient was pretty fixed. We picture an older, overweight guy who just completely stops breathing in his sleep. But notice the stark contrast with UARS. These folks often have a BMI under 25. They are young, usually between 20 and 40 years old, and it affects men and women almost equally. This is a massive paradigm shift. It means young, thin, seemingly perfectly healthy people can be suffering from severe, undiagnosed sleep fragmentation just as much as older individuals with classic sleep apnea. Because complete airway collapse doesn't actually happen and oxygen stays stable, UARS is incredibly stealthy. The patient is suffering from what we call respiratory effort-related arousals. And because these arousals are so incredibly brief, literally just a flash of brainwave activity on an EEG, the person has absolutely no memory of waking up. None. They might be waking up dozens of times an hour, completely fracturing their deep, restorative, slow-wave sleep. So they wake up completely exhausted, dealing with brain fog, memory issues, and they have absolutely no idea why. So we have this localized mechanical problem, right? A narrow airway causing microscopic awakenings. But the body is an interconnected network. So what actually happens when this tiny, invisible airway struggle triggers a systemic biological alarm across your entire body? Section 2. The metabolic alarm system. Fragmented sleep and airway resistance aren't just making you tired. They are actively rewriting your metabolic code into a dangerous biological cascade. When you struggle to breathe, even just slightly, it sends a powerful signal to your brain that you are under threat. So step 1. Intermittent hypoxia, those brief drops in oxygen, and sleep fragmentation kick in. Step 2. This forcefully shifts your autonomic nervous system from rest and digest straight into sympathetic overdrive. You are basically trapped in chronic fight or flight while you are supposed to be sleeping. Step 3. This flood of stress hormones directly tells your pancreas to stop secreting insulin, all while sparking systemic inflammation. By step 4, your liver, your skeletal muscles, and your fat tissue develop severe insulin resistance. This is a perfect example of how a breathing problem silently morphs into a full-blown metabolic crisis. Let's talk about that intermittent drop in oxygen because it acts as an ancient evolutionary survival alarm. It activates a protein complex called NF-kappa B. Think of NF-kappa B as basically the master switch for inflammation in your body. When your oxygen drops, the switch flips on, and it floods your vascular system with oxidative stress. It even changes the polarization of macrophages in your fat tissue, which literally turns your own body fat into an active source of systemic inflammation. It is wild. And the result of this alarm? It's pretty staggering. Moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea is associated with a 63% increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And it's a two-way street. Poor sleep drives diabetes, and then the metabolic damage from diabetes can actually worsen your sleep-disordered breathing by causing nerve damage that messes with the central control of your respiration. The whole system is completely, inextricably linked. Which brings us to a profoundly important threshold. If oxygen deprivation and a hyperactive nervous system are silently rewriting your metabolism, what on earth is this nightly struggle doing to your brain? Section 3. The brain's nightly wash. Prepare to completely change how you view your time spent asleep. Back in 2012, neuroscience was flipped entirely on its head by the discovery of the glymphatic system. This is an elite, brain-wide waste clearance network. Basically, throughout the day, as your neurons fire and you think, work, and stress, your brain generates toxic metabolic byproducts. The glymphatic system is the plumbing network that uses cerebrospinal fluid to literally flush the cellular trash right out of your brain. But here is the massive catch. This mandatory cleaning cycle is highly state-dependent. It absolutely cannot operate efficiently while you are awake. It requires deep sleep. Because during N3 slow-wave deep sleep, something miraculous happens. The neuroadrenergic tone in your brain drops, and the interstitial space between your brain cells actually expands by a staggering 60%. Just imagine the tight microscopic spaces in your brain physically opening up to allow cerebral spinal fluid to rush in like this massive nightly tide, washing over your neural tissue. But how is this fluid actually pumped? It's a fascinating process called vasomotion. During deep sleep, major neuromodulators like serotonin and dopamine synchronize into these incredibly slow waves, happening roughly once every 50 seconds. These chemical waves drive your blood vessels to rhythmically expand and contract. And to be clear, this isn't your heartbeat. This is a slow, mechanical pumping action driven entirely by sleep chemicals. It pushes fluid through specialized aquaporin 4 water channels to physically power wash your brain. So what exactly is this nightly tide washing away? The targets are profoundly important. This system flushes out amyloid beta proteins and hyperphosphorylated tau proteins. And if you recognize those names, it's because these are the exact neurotoxic proteins responsible for Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. When conditions like URs or sleep apnea constantly pull you out of deep sleep, they halt this delicate 50-second wave. The cleaning cycle just stops, and those toxic proteins are left trapped in your brain tissue. Let me ground this in a very real-world consequence for you. Just one single night of total sleep deprivation produces a measurable increase in cortical amyloid burden on a PET scan. The aging of your brain and your progression toward cognitive decline is intricately, directly tethered to the quality of your airway every single night. Section 4. The Unified Biological Network. Okay, let's tie all these hidden forces together. Because we now finally understand the body as one interconnected system, modern sleep medicine in 2025 is rapidly evolving. We're looking way beyond just basic CPAP machines. For complex cases like central sleep apnea, therapies like adaptive servoventilation are reemerging with really precise monitoring. We even have transvenous phrenic nerve stimulation now, which is an implantable device that stimulates the nerve to literally control your diaphragm while you sleep. But most importantly, doctors are moving beyond just looking at the AHI, the number of breathing pauses on a chart. They are prioritizing how the patient actually feels, treating the entire biological operating system rather than just chasing a single symptom. And we have incredible proof that fixing your sleep actually works. A recent randomized crossover study found something that sounds totally counterintuitive at first. Morning blood plasma levels of toxic beta amyloid and tau are actually significantly higher following a night of normal sleep compared to a night of sleep deprivation. Now, why would that be? Because effective deep sleep literally pushes the neurotoxic waste out of your brain and dumps it into your bloodstream to be cleared by your liver and kidneys. If you don't sleep, the trash never makes it to the blood. It just stays trapped inside your head. Which brings us to a massive paradigm shift. The old view told us health was isolated, right? You fix your sleep to feel rested, you fix your diet to fix your metabolism, but the absolute truth is health is the emergent result of countless interconnected processes occurring every moment of every day. Treating airway resistance isn't just about stopping snoring so your partner can finally get some sleep. It's about down-regulating your sympathetic nervous system, restoring your insulin sensitivity, and physically power-washing dementia-causing proteins right out of your brain.
And the future of tracking all of this? It's already here. Consumer wearables that track heart rate variability, which is just the subtle timing changes between your heartbeats, are becoming an amazing window into your brain. Because HRV during sleep directly tracks the nervous system's chemical rhythms that power vasomotion, these devices may soon flag lymphatic failure decades before the very first symptoms of dementia even begin. You'll literally be able to see the efficiency of your brain's nightly wash right there on your wrist.
We've traveled from a tiny narrowing of the throat all the way to the expansion of the brain's microscopic fluid channels. You now understand that your body is a deeply unified, intelligent network. Every single breath you take in the dark echoes through your metabolism and your memory. So I leave you with this. Now that you actually know about the hidden operating system running beneath your daily experience, how will you protect your brain's nightly tide? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.